I have spent my last week involved with Hyperianism and a personality known as Morg. The name alone should tell you that he attracts younger folks with a dark kind of gothic or emo environment. This makes it a movement that is not suitable for everyone. There is also a tendency to attract younger people who are troubled or struggling with any host of psychological or home issues. It seems to be a sort of misfits group, with very few members being that of mainstream families or highly educated folks such as university scholars. There is also subtle hints towards sex, and will involve itself with opinions on swingers and other sexual activities that some might find distasteful. Hyperianism, as it currently stands with Morg as the kingpin, is clearly not catering to a wider audience. However, if it does cater to you and your lifestyle, it seems to harbor a positive effect on one's life. There is the general golden rule of be good to others and harm no one. I personally found that I like Morg. I relate to him as an artist, as I too am an artist. You might think that the red glasses are rather odd, but these are just ways in which artists like to set themselves apart and brand themselves. He is very charismatic, and I fully enjoy his intellect when it comes to criticizing Christianity or the Abrahamic God. I value much of his work, and he is no doubt an intelligent and creative mind, above and beyond average. However, I have come to find that Hyperianism is a religion itself. Now, of course, all religious groups hate that word and will say, no, we are not a religion because we have proof. It has been disclosed, however, that Hyperianism makes knowledge claims about the source of reality and even what happens after you die. If you follow the scientific community, you will soon find that there is no consensus, that we in fact have no verdict yet on these issues. But people will always step up and make these kinds of knowledge claims, and usually gather some loyal believers. One of its strong followers says, "We believe in reincarnation." If Morg has proof, I would suggest that he goes to the university level of his peers for peer review and seek the Nobel Prize as a more important goal than seeking Patreon dollars from his young and oftentimes troubled members. However, if he is helping people and doing no real harm in the world, more power to him, and he deserves the funding he receives. We all need a paycheck. That being said, what all exclusive groups and religions have in common is that they tend to create outcasts, people who have a problem with the movement. I have spoken with a few of these folks and will provide you with the links to their pages so you can look further into the complaint department if you wish. At this point, I prefer to remain neutral as far as too many positives and negatives go, and just say, hey, this is a religious group who seems to be hurting nobody in any kind of real way. And if you need some kind of spirituality in your life, this option is much better than Christianity or Islam. In fact, has more in common with Hinduism or Buddhism. Deepak Chopra will probably agree on much of Morg's teachings on consciousness and reincarnation. I am aware that Hyperianism claims to hold scientific or mathematical proof of its afterlife and reality claims. It does attempt to align itself and be a friend with science. However, on the same token, Morg, the leader, seems to be not interested in taking his mathematical equations to any kind of university level for peer review and critique. He keeps himself rather protected and at the top of a so-called totem pole, causing many to think he is at the top of a pyramid scheme rather than a truth movement. He will spit out scientific terminology and mathematical equations that sound impressive, but to his average followers, they could never fully understand. Instead of mingling with mathematicians and scholars, he remains primarily in a social media bubble, avoiding any criticism from intellectual peers, leading some to think he is nothing more than a seeker of fame, as he once, in fact, was a street performer who acquired some notoriety, some would even say a platform, on a TV show called Freak Show. He has come up with his religious ideas and rebranded it several times, with Hyperianism being the successful version. He has a book which would almost be likened to their very own Bible. He keeps it all feeling mysterious, like a dark and secretive enlightenment for only those who open the pages and the truth about reality will be made clear, and they will become Hyperians. It seems to be rather luring for many who have been disenfranchised with other religions or the current state of society, as he often speaks of creating a new world. All in all, I believe this is a movement that will never completely leave the ground and take off to be as big or successful as groups such as Scientology, but that will be up for time to determine. I am aware that there has been a degree of crossover with Morg and us, Stairway to Reason. That is to say that many of his followers are fans of ours over here, and some of us are fans of his. I have with me at the end of this video one of his higher-ups who has been a subscriber to our channel. So in a way, we are fighting the same fight against religions and trying to promote more science. Therefore, many atheists and freethinkers tend to lend a pass to Morg and welcome him into the camp when they see him bashing on the Christian God or talking about physics and math. It's a little more refreshing than people believing in a God-man who was born to a virgin, and if you don't believe, you go to hell. He also swallows swords. That's kind of cool. So welcoming him into our ranks of the reasoning class often goes without much scrutiny. He just kind of slips in. I have gathered some highlights from my recent interviews with ex-Hyperians and one devoted Hyperian for you to enjoy. So here we go.
In terms that people would understand, is a belief in reincarnation.
Okay. So is it a religion then?
It has some of those aspects. Like I can understand why people would see it as a religion. The reason that I don't personally view Hyperianism as a religion is because it encompasses so many different things. Like I said, I can't lay down expert level mathematical equations yet. I'm not that far advanced. Also, I should say I discovered this pretty close to the beginning when it was Order 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been kind of hanging around for a while.
Right.
I've watched it develop from Order of 1. I've watched it grow. I've watched Morg change his approach.
Yeah.
To try and find something that works. But really, aside from making waves on social media, we haven't really reached anyone on the academic level. The only thing I know about Morg is that, like me, he is non-binary.
Non-binary. What? Explain that to me.
It means that you don't necessarily identify as either gender. When we encourage sexual freedom, we also encourage communication between partners. these things shouldn't be discouraged. If you are married to somebody and want to seek out a threesome, go seek out a threesome. You should be free to do that. It shouldn't be frowned upon. This is actually discussed quite a bit on the Hyperion source. We don't choose to follow him because we're brainwashed fangirls. We choose to let him lead us because we respect him. We all have a reason for it. Me personally, mental health issues aside and helping me learn to deal with that, I wouldn't have began painting. My art, for the record, I do a lot of Hyperion related art. That's a painting of the Triskelion that I did. We have survivors of physical and sexual abuse.
I am Stevie. I found out about Morg actually not through Hyperionism. I actually found out about him through a show on AMC television networks called Freak Show. And it was just a kind of a TV drama where they'd follow these different street performers' lives and such. And after that show got off the air, Anthony might know more about what he was doing in that interim, but to me, he kind of fell off my radar. Then he popped up again on my radar when I noticed somebody had shared a video on Facebook of what he was doing now in Hyperionism. And at first, I didn't even recognize who he was until I watched more of his videos. And I go, wasn't this guy on a television show a while ago? Now he's making all these broad statements about, anti-science and anti-religion. What's going on here? So that's how I found out about him. And after that, I did a pretty big deep dive into his content. It's essentially been more or less the same philosophy, but he's had different public entities for it online over the years. And for some reason, they've all failed. And he's just started over from the start, trying to rebrand his content. And I guess at this particular crossing, this is the version of it that stuck the most.
My name's Jessica, and I've been following Morg since his Freak Show. And joined his Hyperionism and just kind of went through. I was a Christian whenever I joined, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, I was questioning my faith, and they just seemed to make a lot of sense in the beginning. Like, I was close to a lot of the members, and then they shunned me, kind of, and then blocked me. They bullied me.
Okay, so they were just mean to you, just kind of a cold-hearted group.
Yeah, I think it was because I was a Christian and I wasn't making up my mind. I really don't know. They didn't really tell me their problem with me.
Did you support them financially?
Yeah.
I'm Anthony. I joined what it was the Order of the One back then. It's about 3-4 years ago. I posted some criticism about Morg and his whole system. What was his intentions financially? If he owns a copyright to this business, if it is just a business or is it actually a movement? And any criticism towards him was treated like, oh, you are against us,
Wow.
And I've seen not that I've made like some good friends when I was in Hyperionism, and they just turned their back on me just because of that.
Okay, so what religion does that I don't like is it creates the us and them effect. We are privileged, we have special knowledge, we are saved, you're not. And anytime that you don't conform from A to Z, then all of a sudden you're not part of us. You're out all of a sudden.
Right. It's like a blind allegiance.
The process to actually join is very bizarre. One of the rituals you have to perform is that you write your name on a piece of paper and then destroy it, which is supposed to be a symbolizing of destroying your past self. So then when you're in this, it can be kind of recreated through your journey through being in Hyperionism.
This reminds me of Christianity and baptism.
It does, doesn't it? To me, the whole thing is just a big farce. It's using different elements of esoteric spirituality, ontological mathematics is more or less what he calls the science aspect of Hyperianism, as a big smokescreen for him to go, buy my books, buy my t-shirts, just buy my stuff and start funding my organization. And once it comes to where a person realizes they've kind of been taken advantage of and they try to leave, they face the backlash that these two people in the stream here with me have faced. He lives in an area of LA where the average rent on an apartment like mine, which is a 1-bedroom, is about $4,500 a month. And he's living easy. He's not struggling. Okay, he goes on his Instagram and social media accounts and brags all the time. I just got done with jujitsu class. Well, look at all this vegan food that I bought. Here's some more, stuff that I'm going to do this weekend. And it's, funny.
So he's bragging a famous lifestyle. So I'm going to be a little bit careful about fame bashing, because achieving fame is
difficult.
It's hard work. And to get there deserves some praise, I think. But what is it in his message? Is it corrupt? Is it going to hurt people? Is it a religion? Is it a cult? I mean, what about is it a negative thing that he's doing in people's lives?
What about it to me that starts to get corrupt is that he puts a very, very huge division between people in their normal lives and his, how do I want to put this? He has videos in the past where he explicitly states that a person shouldn't really trust their parents. They really shouldn't think the people close to them, such as friends that are outside of the organization, really have their best interest in mind. And it was that, I think, that solidified for me that this is not a good thing, especially considering that there are people in his group about as young as 14 in some cases where they don't need to hear this. You don't want to start telling them that. They get into very extremist territories.
They view life as a game, and they think that suicide is just like a reset button, and that you could be reinserted back into what they call the holos.
He tries to say things like, like reality is not real, and it's ridiculous. That's not based on anything other than just what he made up, because how do you prove that? It's an unfalsifiable hypothesis. It's what Christians use to try to justify God. And some of the larger critics of him on YouTube have been scientists and mathematicians who do videos about physics all the time, that watched his video about science is the new religion, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about?
He wants to wipe out the old world order, and they want to take over the world practically.
That's scary.
Yes, it is scary.
Those are their words too. And when you criticize them and they don't allow criticism, that's definitely a sign to get out of there.
Is he actually tries to make the claim that he's literally transcended above being human, like literally.
The Hyperians are higher than humanity, and that you have to reach that level in order to be good enough for whatever.
He wants people to become gods in their own mind, and it's a real big ego trip way of putting it.
Yeah, they got big egos, I tell you.
He has absolutely rejected any criticism ever. In fact, some of the videos where he made his most extreme political statements, I find it funny, even though I have them saved on my hard drive. He tried taking them down off his YouTube and his Facebook. It sounded like he was trying to envision a world that would have been a communist's paradise. Essentially, it was just the most disturbing thing, because he'll go on tangents about completely unrelated subject matter to what he's trying to originally talk about. And a lot of his videos, they just seem like somebody screaming into a void all the ideas that are popping into their head at that moment. And then when you sit back and you actually listen to it, you know that this is all just Looney Tunes. But when you do that, go look into the comment sections of his videos, and you'll see people just, and this is so typical of cult behavior, people just always agreeing. There's no difference of opinion. There's no, well, this could be great, but maybe you should revise this idea. It's like, I love this. This is the best thing I've ever heard. You're so smart. It's just
sheeple.
Exactly. And he talks crap about people that he considers sheeple, yet he's got an army of them to himself.
He's not reaching out to the greater scientific community and saying, hey guys, could I be wrong here?
No, he absolutely
I don't think
rejects science.
Yeah,
yes.
That's irrational to him.
I think it's a problem with his ego, with his image. The way he goes about it is extremely dualistic. It supports dark imagery, the shadow way to enlightenment, and they absolutely reject light workers. They look down on light workers as being submissive, and they only focus on the dark side.
He likes the occult. He prefers Satanists and witches.
They think basically he's pulled most of his philosophy from different tenets of different forms of Satanism, from traditional Luciferianism to Levian Satanism and such. It's like he just took what he could find there and pulled it and then made his version of it.
He has like hierarchies, and when you get to the highest hierarchy, it's only just to promote his books.
Yeah, I actually have that document for it pulled up right now on my other screen. It's a project that he's doing called Project Fallen Star, and basically it, if you want to be literal, almost seems like a multi-level marketing scheme where you start at the bottom and work your way to the top, but the only way you reach the top of the hierarchy is through doing different work to promote him on social media avenues.
You get to hang out with him in his inner circle if you reach a certain point.
Yeah, pretty much. That's what you're working towards. And that's the Patreon he has is part of it. It actually plays into that.
Why is it that I get an icky feeling of sex when I see Morg? What's going on there?
So I think what he's doing is he's targeting a specific demographic, one that's very young, on the edge. They kind of identify with this darker image kind of stuff. And that's usually the age of,
testosterone's high. The girls are curious. Yeah,
it was around probably more commonly the 18 to 24 demographic, but like I said, in some of his groups he's got people as young as 14. So I'd say if you're going to be real, it's probably around the ages of like 16 to 30 is his main demographic.
So he's getting young people. Basically teens.
Well, he's going 20s. For it specifically because he'll tag his videos with things that they're into. He basically is targeting a lot of the Gothic subculture, not just through his imagery, but he also works heavily with it in LA. He works with a club called Cloak and Dagger. I see why a lot of people can be drawn to that, but he really does push that angle of it intentionally because it is alluring. It's very seductive.
Yeah.
It could definitely be a problem because people at that age, especially who identify like that, some have mental problems, depression. I went through that myself.
They want to feel like they're a part of something, and this group really does take advantage of it.
That's why I joined.
But as he brought up, he does really push the sexual angle of it. He doesn't want sexual repression in any form or fashion, but he gets into territory that is of really nebulous intent. If he still has the video he made up about it, he talks about legalities, getting in the way, but he doesn't expand on it. He's intentionally vague. And I would love to pick his brain and ask, what did you mean by that exactly?
Yeah.
What do you mean, like age constraints or something like that? Because then you're getting into territory that to me is just illegal.
I think that somebody who's very honest and sincere would be very open, like I am, to chat with anybody. And be asked hard questions and give honest answers. If he is not available for counter criticism, for like, say, a physics scholar, if he's closed from that kind of an engagement, then he really is a false person, a very insincere personality, because somebody who's sincere, somebody who's sincere and honest, they should be willing to go in front of peer review.
In a way, he kind of just puts himself above them and just disregards any of the criticism that he's gotten as far as those disciplines are concerned. I mean, he has gotten so many critique videos from people that are mathematicians and physicists, and he just says they're all wrong.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Does he face them? Will he?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
That's what I'm getting at.
No, if he's as far as concerned, no. I've only seen him do one real interview. He just called the person an opportunist for criticizing them, saying basically everything we've said in this interview so far. So he doesn't face criticism.
He has an army of yes men to back him up too.
I don't want people that are listening to this to think that they're bad people. They're good people. A lot of them are smart people.
I'm certain
young
they
people.
are.
They're very intelligent, but when you're inside something like this, you really don't get to see how you're being taken advantage of, because you're being reinforced through, as we've said before, an army of yes men to be told it's all one way. It's not what people are saying. No, they're all wrong. I'm sorry to break it to you, but no, you're getting taken advantage of. Your lives are being made more difficult to make somebody else's life easier. And they don't like when that gets cut into. They get shunned, just like Scientologists do for leaving and questioning.
Any teenager, and if you're lucky enough to shed Christianity, for good sakes, don't get caught up in something else.
I think one of the best statements about that one of the criticizers of him made was by Count Jacula. And he said, once somebody lays on to you that they have ultimate knowledge, you need to run in the other direction.